Ambassador Tixty adjusted his ceremonial environment suit, double-checking that the temperature regulators were functioning flawlessly. In the unforgiving conditions of the Galactic Council chambers, caution was paramount. The atmospheric pressure here, a relentless 0.9 standard units, combined with temperature swings between 19 degrees Celsius and 21 degrees Celsius, would surely doom lesser species. Tixty puffed out his thoracic chambers with pride as he strode through the grand entrance of the Council of Deathworlders. The massive doors, constructed from so-called reinforced materials barely stronger than standard construction polymers, parted before him. Morning light filtered through specialized windows that shielded the chamber's occupants from the mild UV radiation of the local star. Ambassador Tile, announced the chamber AI, its booming voice a needless testament to the resilience of its audience. Representatives of other formidable species inclined their heads in solemn acknowledgement. The Khazari, survivors of the searing world of Nixklar, where temperatures soared to a merciless 25 degrees Celsius, sat in stoic silence. Across the chamber was Valkin of the Jori, whose people endured rains exceeding 2 centimeters in a single season, and the legendary warrior-philosopher Zenx, a product of a world with an unrelenting one standard gravity. These were the elites of the galaxy, forged by the harshest of worlds. Tixty stepped forward, his voice modulated to carry through the chamber's punishing acoustics. Honored members, I bring grave news from the frontier. A ripple of muted murmurs echoed through the chamber, careful not to strain sensitive auditory systems. This is no ordinary discovery, Tixty continued, activating his presentation interface with a dramatic flick of his primary appendage. Our instruments have detected a species existing in conditions that defy all logic. A collective intake of breath filled the room, though tempered to avoid hyperventilation. The ambassadors leaned forward in their reinforced chairs, the quiet creak of environment suits betraying their unease. Tixty paused, ensuring every eye or equivalent sensory organ was on him. Prepare yourselves, ensure your shock suppressors are active. With a flourish, he activated the data crystals. A soft glow illuminated the chamber, projecting an image of a vibrant blue planet. This, Tixty declared gravely, is Earth. The room stilled as the ambassadors absorbed the data. Tixty's voice trembled with calculated intensity. This world experiences temperature swings exceeding 50 degrees Celsius between poles and equator. Some regions endure 30 degrees Celsius fluctuations within a single planetary rotation. Impossible, bellowed Valkin. No sentient species could survive such chaos. In the observation gallery, Khazari scientist Vectra scrutinized the readings. Her primary eyes widened in disbelief as her secondary set narrowed in concentration. The atmospheric data alone was staggering, nearly 21% oxygen. Such a reactive composition should render the planet sterile. Tixty activated another crystal. Strange, rhythmic sounds filled the chamber, accompanied by crude visuals. The images showed bipedal creatures moving in oddly synchronized motions, their behavior baffling yet oddly deliberate. Our xenolinguists believe this is a form of communication, Tixty explained. They call it rock and roll. Zenx clicked his mandibles in amusement. Primitive. Observe how they still rely on physical vibrations for sound transmission rather than quantum resonance arrays. Vectra's appendages twitched with scientific curiosity. Fascinating, she murmured. They appear to engage in coordinated movements to elevate heart rates. A ritual? Perhaps endurance training? Her intrigue deepened as additional data revealed their bizarre habits. These humans routinely consumed dihydrogen monoxide, complete with suspended mineral content. They thrived in regions plagued by frozen precipitation, sweltering heat, and something called humidity, which caused her suit sensors to glitch simply by measuring it. Tixty, however, pressed on. I propose we classify this planet as an impossible class deathworld and quarantine the system. Clearly, our instruments must be malfunctioning. No intelligent species could evolve under such conditions. The chamber erupted in subdued agreement, ready to approve the proposal. Yet Vectra quietly slipped away, clutching the data crystals. Something in the figures didn't add up. Not only were these humans surviving, but preliminary calculations suggested they were thriving. As she entered her laboratory, her thoughts lingered on one last revelation from Tixty's presentation. And most troubling of all, he had concluded, these beings deliberately ingest neurotoxins for pleasure, a substance they call coffee. The Council's collective shudder of horror had been entirely sincere. The meeting between humanity and the Galactic Council was proceeding as well as could be expected when one side considered breathing unfiltered air an extreme sport. Sarah Chen, Earth's hastily appointed xenodiplomat, kept a composed smile as she watched Ambassador Tixtile and his delegation frantically recalibrate their environment suits. Moments earlier, they had witnessed her casually remove her jacket because the room felt slightly warm. "Please, esteemed representatives," Sarah said soothingly, "there's no need to adjust your suits. We can lower the temperature if it's uncomfortable." "Lower the temperature?" Tile's translator conveyed his tone as a blend of awe and alarm. "You mean you can survive even more extreme conditions than these?" Sarah resisted the urge to point out that the room was a comfortably controlled 22 degrees Celsius. Behind her, Vectra, the Khazari scientist accompanying the delegation, was furiously taking notes, her sensors whirring. "Perhaps we should proceed with the cultural exchange," Sarah suggested. Steering the conversation back on track, she took a sip from her water bottle, only to be met with a chorus of alarmed chirps from the aliens' environmental suits. "By the harsh winds of Naxklar," Tile exclaimed, "are you consuming unprocessed dihydrogen monoxide without filtering the minerals?" "It's just water," Sarah replied, then regretted her casual tone as 3 junior diplomats activated their emergency shock suppressors. Vectra edged closer, her sensor arrays humming. "Fascinating. And you experience no ill effects from direct mineral absorption?" "Actually, we need the minerals," Sarah explained, watching Vectra's 4 primary eyes widen in sequence. "Perhaps we should move on to interstellar trade opportunities," Sarah suggested, trying to salvage the meeting. Things might have stabilized, but Sarah's assistant entered the room at precisely the wrong moment, with lunch. The sight of humans handling food without sterile fields or molecular restructuring sent the alien delegation into another spiral of distress. "Is that biological matter?" a Jori diplomat asked, their suits' warning lights flashing in alarm. "Minimally processed and exposed to atmosphere?" "It's just a sandwich," Sarah's assistant offered helpfully. "Anyone want one?" "They're turkey." "They're deliberately consuming processed protein from another species," Vectra whispered, her scientific detachment crumbling, "without synthetic conversion." Sarah could almost see the rippling shock across the delegation as they reassessed every assumption about humanity. It was bad enough that humans survived conditions others deemed lethal. Enjoying them was apparently another level of terror. "Perhaps," Sarah suggested diplomatically, forcing down a smirk, "we should take a brief recess to process the new information." "Yes," Tile agreed hurriedly, his suit's ventilation system audibly straining. "A recess is prudent. We clearly need to reassess our classifications of your species." As the delegation filed out, Vectra lingered, her focus on Sarah's water bottle. "Diplomat Chen," she asked, scientific curiosity overriding protocol, "is it true humans sometimes immerse themselves in dihydrogen monoxide for recreation?" Sarah's carefully maintained diplomatic mask cracked. "You mean swimming?" "Oh, sure. Some of us even do it in the ocean, a really big collection of water, with extra minerals and living things in it." The sound of Vectra's suit as she fled the room translated almost perfectly as "oh my god." 3 standard cycles later, the Galactic Council faced its first real crisis in generations. The ancient predecessor artifacts in the Nexus trade corridor had abruptly activated. Ambassador Tile stood before the emergency session, his environment suit lights reflecting his agitation. "The predecessor artifacts have disrupted the Nexus corridor," Tile began. 16 cargo vessels have been forced to abort their calculated routes. Carefully measured chaos rippled through the chamber. The Nexus corridor handled 40% of galactic trade. A disruption of this scale threatened slightly delayed luxury shipments, a disaster by Council standards. "We've deployed our most advanced solutions," Tile continued. The Jori sent their quantum disruption fleet, prompted Zentx. Tile's frustration was palpable. The artifacts ignored them. Their systems didn't even register the quantum fields. Vectra, granted emergency speaking privileges due to her expertise in extreme survival scenarios and her growing research on humans, activated her presentation interface. The predecessor artifacts, she explained, operate on principles we barely understand. Our attempts to override their systems have failed because they rely on primitive technology, physical mechanisms, materials responsive to temperature and pressure, rather than quantum manipulation. Primitive? The word rippled through the chamber, a collective shock wave of disbelief. Yes, Vectra confirmed, bracing herself. They use mechanical systems and physical engineering, fields where our advanced solutions cannot interface. The horror in the room was palpable. Anxiety suppressors lit up across the chamber. Vectra pressed on. There might be a solution. She paused. I suggest we consult the humans. Silence fell, broken only by the faint hum of ventilation systems. The humans? Tile's voice climbed an octave. But there. Exactly. Vectra interrupted, displaying her data. Humans excel at physical engineering, working with crude materials, and most importantly, she hesitated, activating her shock suppressors. They are accustomed to failure. The room erupted again. The very idea of preparing for failure rather than pursuing perfection was anathema to the Council's worldview. Sarah Chen's hologram materialized in the center of the chamber, summoned by Vectra's emergency protocol. Taking in the scene a room full of stressed aliens in environment suits, she maintained her diplomatic smile. I understand you're experiencing a technical issue, Sarah began. Sarah Chen watched as the Galactic Council chamber descended into barely restrained chaos. Ambassador Tixtile, his environment suit flashing in agitation, addressed her with visible effort. Diplomat Chen, we face a grave crisis, he began. Ancient defensive artifacts are active, operating on primitive principles, actual gears and physical mechanisms. Sarah's eyes lit up with genuine interest. You mean real mechanical engineering? None of that quantum, whatever. You seem excited by this prospect, Zentx observed, his tone laced with horrified disbelief. Oh, absolutely. Sarah's grin widened. When I was a kid, my grandfather restored ancient Earth machines called automobiles. They had internal combustion engines, mechanical transmissions, the works. I spent every summer learning how to fix them. If these artifacts operate on similar principles, you intentionally learned obsolete mechanical engineering? Vectra, the Khazari scientist, interrupted, her scientific detachment slipping again. For fun, Sarah shrugged, and I bet we've got thousands of engineers back home who'd love to tackle this. Of course, we'll need to examine the artifacts up close, maybe take a few things apart. The Council collectively shuddered at the idea of humans physically dismantling priceless ancient technology. But as reports came in of yet another trade vessel being forced off course by the artifact's defenses, they realized there was no choice. Very well, Tile said at last, his translator barely masking his resignation. We formally request humanity's primitive assistance in this matter. Sarah's smile widened just slightly. We'll have a team ready within 24 hours. Oh, an ambassador, they'll probably want to bring their tools. The simultaneous activation of several shock suppressors echoed through the chamber. The Council observation deck. The deck overlooking the predecessor artifact had never witnessed such a sight. Sarah Chen stood confidently before the assembled ambassadors, gesturing at what she had referred to as a whiteboard, a primitive surface requiring manual writing. Behind her, visible through the reinforced viewing windows, a team of human engineers worked directly on the artifact. They wore no environment suits, just sturdy fabric coverings, and were, to the Council's horror, touching the ancient device. As you can see, Sarah began, sketching a diagram on the whiteboard with an actual marker. The artifact's defensive grid operates on basic mechanical principles. Essentially, it's a highly sophisticated clockwork computer. Clockwork? Vectra leaned forward, her sensors humming with curiosity. You mean it uses physical components to process information? How wonderfully inefficient. Exactly, Sarah beamed. Over the past days, she'd grown fond of Vectra's unfiltered scientific enthusiasm. That's why your quantum tech couldn't interface with it. You were trying to hack a pocket watch using a quantum computer. Tyle's environment suit made a sound suspiciously like a gulp. And your solution is to, what was the term, jury-rig it? Well, Sarah said, drawing another diagram. First we had to figure out how it thinks. Your species developed quantum computing because it's efficient. The predecessors, on the other hand, built this thing to last. No quantum degradation, no field collapse, just gears and levers that'll keep running until the heat death of the universe. But surely, another council member interjected, such primitive technology could be easily circumvented. Dr. Martinez, the leader of the human engineering team, patched into the discussion. That's the beauty of it, you can't hack physics. These mechanisms follow the fundamental laws of the universe. No quantum manipulation can override them. It's like trying to negotiate with gravity. Humans do not negotiate with gravity? Vectra asked, genuinely puzzled. Figure of speech, Sarah said quickly. The point is, the predecessors designed this system on purpose. It's not a flaw, it's a feature. And your solution? Tyle prompted, his anxiety suppressors clearly struggling as he watched humans wield wrenches near the priceless artifact. Sarah grinned. We're going to give it what it wants. Vectra tilted her head, her curiosity overriding protocol. By manipulating the defensive protocols through mechanical inputs? Exactly, Sarah replied. Remember when you said you were fascinated by humanity's understanding of leverage? Indeed, Vectra said. Your species demonstrates an extraordinary ability to multiply force through mechanical advantage, despite your limited quantum manipulation capabilities. Well, the artifact's defensive protocols are basically extremely complex levers. Instead of trying to override them, we're providing the specific inputs they're designed to recognize. That's barbaric, murmured a council member. Brilliant, Vectra corrected, her four primary eyes widening in sequence. It's so primitive, it's actually advanced. Sarah nodded. The predecessors built this system to ensure that any species advanced enough to mess with their technology would first need to understand the fundamentals. No shortcuts. Through the window, Dr. Martinez's team had laid out their tools, wrenches, screwdrivers, and other mechanical devices. The sight made several council members activate their visual filters in distress. But the risk, Tyle protested. One wrong move and the defensive protocols could. That's the thing about mechanical systems, Sarah interrupted gently. They're predictable. Push here. Something moves there. We've mapped out every possible failure mode. And if we do break something? The chamber collectively gasped. Then we'll just fix it, Sarah said calmly. That's how humans learn. We break things, we fix them, and we figure it out as we go. Vectra's enthusiasm overtook her diplomatic restraint. Indeed, humans exhibit a remarkable ability to adapt through physical interaction. Your willingness to embrace imperfection is, she hesitated, unorthodox, but effective. Sarah nodded toward the engineers, and in about 5 minutes, you're going to see just how effective. Fascinatingly, failure is a cornerstone of their process, Vectra murmured, her gaze fixed on the human diplomat. Humans intentionally pursue scenarios where failure is possible because it provides learning opportunities. It's completely counter to every known species development pattern, and that, Sarachin concluded, finishing a rough diagram on her whiteboard with a dramatic flourish, is why we're going to solve this problem. Not because we're smarter or more advanced, but because we never got so obsessed with perfect solutions that we forgot how to use a wrench. Behind her, through the observation window, Dr. Martinez gave a thumbs up, signaling the first mechanical adjustments were ready to begin. I suggest, Sarah added diplomatically, noticing the council members' growing agitation, that those of a more sensitive disposition retreat to the observation lounge. This next part involves what we call percussive maintenance. What is percussive maintenance? Tile asked, his voice laden with dread. The sharp sound of a hammer striking metal echoed through the chamber, followed immediately by the soft thuds of multiple council members activating their shock suppressors. Vectra, alone among her peers, leaned forward eagerly, recording every detail with her sensors. Fascinating, she whispered. They're not afraid to hit things until they work. The integration of human mechanical expertise with alien quantum technology went about as smoothly as anyone could have anticipated if smoothly involved humans smashing things and aliens suppressing anxiety at every turn. No, your quantum field is disrupting the mechanical oscillation, Sarah explained to a flustered Vectra. You need to let the gears actually move. But the inefficiency. Vectra protested, her scientific poise faltering. All that energy lost to friction and heat. That's the point. Dr. Martinez's voice echoed from inside the artifact's housing. The heat pattern is part of the recognition sequence. It's like a mechanical password. You mean the predecessors used waste energy as an authentication method? Vectra's sensors hummed as she processed the revelation. That's brilliant. I was going to say horrifying, she added, pausing as the human team's adjustments triggered a cascade of mechanical movements. Then, reconsidering, actually, yes. Brilliant. The artifact's ancient gears groaned to life, sending vibrations through the observation deck. Several council members disabled their visual feeds, unable to watch the humans physically tamper with the priceless machinery. Okay, Vectra, Sarah called out, try your quantum field again. But this time, sync it with the mechanical oscillation. Don't try to override it, think of it like pushing a swing. A swing? Vectra asked, confused. Right, sorry. Think of it like harmonically amplifying an existing periodic motion. Vectra's eyes brightened with understanding. Ah, like quantum resonance coupling. Exactly, Sarah confirmed. Vectra activated her quantum field generators just as the humans achieved a steady rhythm with their mechanical adjustments. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a deep, resonating hum, the artifact's defensive grid began moving in perfect synchronization with both the mechanical systems and the quantum field. It's dancing, Vectra whispered in awe. The primitive components and advanced fields are dancing together. Sarah wiped grease from her hands with a rag, a gesture that sent Tile's environmental suit into visible distress. That's because you stopped fighting the system and started working with it. Sometimes the old ways and the new ways work better together, like humans in the council. Exactly, Vectra said, her primary eyes locking on Sarah with newfound respect. Though, perhaps with fewer panic attacks every time someone uses a hammer. The artifact now hummed in perfect harmony, its mechanical brain and quantum-enhanced systems working as one. Vectra found herself wondering if her species had lost something vital in their rush to abandon physical engineering. There was something deeply satisfying about the tangible reliability of a well-maintained machine. Sarah, she asked hesitantly, could you teach me how to use a wrench? Behind them, Tile fainted in his environmental suit. With the human-alien interface operational, the artifact's defensive grid didn't merely deactivate, it began to sing. The sound wasn't metaphorical, it was a series of vibrations that harmonized perfectly with the quantum fields. Is it supposed to do that? Tile asked from behind 3 layers of sonic dampeners. Sarah checked the readouts, her grin spreading. Would you look at that, the predecessors built a mechanical quantum orchestra. What? All those trade ships being diverted? Sarah continued. The artifact wasn't attacking them. It was trying to guide them. Vectra's sensors buzzed with excitement. You mean it was a traffic control system? A dance? Dr. Martinez chuckled over the comms. Exactly. A giant cosmic dance. The defensive grid wasn't protecting anything, it was coordinating ships into a harmonious pattern. The chamber erupted in confused chirps and hums as the implications sank in. The galaxy's most advanced ships, its quantum technology, and its meticulously calculated trade routes had failed because they couldn't follow a rhythm. But that's, Tile sputtered. Beautiful, Vectra finished, her eyes on the artifact. Exactly, Sarah agreed, stepping back as the artifact pulsed with a harmonious glow. The predecessors wanted their systems to work with those who could respect both the old and the new. No shortcuts, no bypassing fundamentals, just good, honest collaboration. Vectra nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps our species abandoned physical principles too quickly in our quest for perfection. There is wisdom in simplicity. And a lot of fun in fixing stuff, Sarah added with a wink. Through the window, the artifact's components continued their rhythmic motion, a perfect blend of mechanical and quantum ingenuity. That's absurd, Tixel spluttered, struggling to find words his translator could render appropriately. No advanced civilization would base a traffic control system on music. Sarah Chen smiled knowingly. Movement, she suggested, the joy of things working together in harmony. Hate to break it to you, Ambassador, but I think the predecessors might have had a sense of fun. The evidence was irrefutable. The artifact guided an incoming trade fleet through a series of intricate, graceful maneuvers. Not only did the ships avoid collisions, but they formed a mesmerizing pattern of movement through space. Ships that synchronized with the rhythm passed seamlessly, while those that didn't were gently nudged back into the dance. All this time, Vectra mused, her scientific detachment forgotten as wonder took hold. We thought we were advancing beyond the predecessors by abandoning physical systems for quantum technology, but they mastered both. They didn't choose mechanical systems because they were primitive, they chose them because they were beautiful. Tixel watched as yet another fleet navigated the corridor with an effortless grace far beyond any quantum-plotted course. His environmental suit's reality checkers strained against the data, but he could no longer deny what he was seeing. Perhaps, he said slowly, carefully measuring each word, we were hasty in our dismissal of physical engineering. And maybe, Sarah added gently, in your judgment of what makes a species advanced. The artifact's mechanical symphony continued, quantum fields and physical components moving together in perfect harmony. A junior council member, entranced by the rhythmic dance of ships, began to sway unconsciously before hastily activating their motion suppressors in embarrassment. We've been so focused on eliminating inefficiency, Vectra said, her four primary eyes following the ship's elegant paths, on transcending physical limitations, that we never considered, maybe these things aren't limitations at all. They're not, Sarah agreed, patting the artifact's housing affectionately. They're opportunities. Every physical law is a chance to learn, every limitation, a challenge to overcome, not by ignoring it, but by understanding it so well that we can make it work for us. Even if that involves occasionally hitting things with hammers? Tixel asked, his translator conveying both horror and reluctant admiration. Sarah grinned, especially then. Sometimes the most elegant solution is the one that makes your grandpa proud. Above them, the cosmic dance continued, blending the old and the new into a harmony no single approach could have achieved alone. For the first time in recorded history, the Galactic Council's emergency session concluded without a single shock suppressor being activated. 1 standard year later, the Galactic Council chamber looked different now. Reinforced windows had been replaced with ordinary transparent ones. Emergency shock suppressors were confined to medical applications, and at least half the council members had discovered they enjoyed the sensation of air on their skin. Sarah Chen, now a full council member, stood at the podium, trying not to grin too broadly at the scene before her. Vectra, wearing what she fondly called her casual environment suit, which was really just a light jacket, was leading a group of fascinated aliens through a hands-on lesson on using screwdrivers. And in conclusion, Sarah addressed the chamber. Humanity is honored to announce the opening of the first Galactic Council Engineering Academy, though we do ask that members stop referring to it as the School of Primitive Arts and Survival. But it sounds so sophisticated, protested a jury representative. who had recently discovered the joys of walking in light rain. Like one of those classical institutions, Tix alighted from his minimally equipped seat. My daughter has become quite enamored with the human concept of mechanical watches. She insists they are the height of elegant engineering. Children these days, Sarah said with a smile, so drawn to the exotic. Across the chamber, council members exchanged amused glances. The galaxy had changed in ways no one had predicted. Quantum technology remained the backbone of interstellar civilization, but now it worked in tandem with physical engineering rather than trying to replace it. Several species had even begun developing their own mechanical systems, though they insisted on calling them artisanal quantum interfaces. As the session ended, Sarah checked her mechanical watch, a gift from Vectra, who had developed a surprising passion for horology. Together, they walked out of the chamber, their conversation weaving between small talk and deeper reflection. You know what the real irony is? Vectra asked thoughtfully. What's that? After all this, we finally understand what truly sophisticated technology looks like. Oh, Sarah raised an eyebrow. It's the technology that doesn't need to prove how advanced it is. Vectra patted her well-worn toolkit affectionately. Now, want to help me teach the council about this charming, primitive concept called bicycle repair? Behind them, the galaxy danced on, a symphony of innovation, collaboration, and the enduring beauty of harmony.